About Ethereum becoming the settlement layer of Web3 and present a case study of how Celo became a layer 2 from layer 1. Please give it up for Marek. I am going to butcher your last name. I'm so sorry. Olszewski.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a hard last name, even in Poland. Hey guys, it's really great to be here. So today I'm going to be talking about Ethereum becoming kind of the settlement layer of Web3. You've probably heard of proto-dank sharding and dank sharding and this huge change that's happening in the Ethereum ecosystem. And so we're really excited to be part of that big change at Celo, and we wanted to share a little bit about our journey of transitioning Celo from an L1 to an L2 and doing our part in this kind of new direction for Ethereum. And if you like this talk, definitely come chat with me afterwards. Happy to answer any questions. And then also feel free to follow me on Twitter. My username is just Marek _, so you don't have to worry about my last name, at least when finding me on Twitter. Cool. Well, so I was here in the other venue this time last year at ETHWarsaw talking about our proposal back then to transition Celo from an L1 to an L2. So back then we had just started thinking about this big transition for the Celo ecosystem. We had a proposal that was out in governance, and people were discussing it and voting on it with on-chain governance. And fast forward to today, we're really excited to share that we have a live testnet, a Celo L2 testnet that we're calling Dango. All of our testnets are named after delicious treats from around the world. Dangos are these Japanese mochi desserts. And you can think of Dango as really the best of Celo, really packaged in kind of this L2 testnet. So Dangos also are pretty convenient in that they have an emoji, and you'll see most of my slides are very emoji heavy. It's another big plus for the name Dango. But again, you can think of Dango as the best of Celo. So all of the nice things that Celo offers, the ability to pay for gas with tokens natively, even without account abstraction, ultra green money, which is this idea that every transaction on Celo has a portion of its base fees go towards buying and retiring carbon credits to offset the carbon of the chain. And then all of the nice mobile features that Celo offers, including a social connect, which is a nice way of mapping phone numbers to wallet addresses in a privacy-preserving way so that you can find and send value to your friends using just your contact lists on your phones. And so all of that now, it's kind of being packaged in the form of an L2, and Dango is kind of really the first step towards our upgrade, towards upgrading Celo from an L1 into an L2. And all of this, again, is happening kind of in the backdrop of Ethereum becoming kind of the settlement layer of Web3. You've probably heard Justin Drake talk a lot about this. I think this is a real an important theme right now in the broader Ethereum ecosystem. And we're really proud. I think we're probably one of the first, if not the first, major L1s to announce that we're making this transition. And we're also probably going to be one of the first ones to actually do the transition later this year. And we really hope that Celo can be a nice case study for others to follow. So if you're working for an alt L1 right now, especially an EVM compatible one, this might be really interesting for you. And if you're not, then I think some of these learnings may still be, I think, potentially interesting. So yeah, let's dig in. But before we do that, and this is a big but, turns out that transitioning a live L1 to an L2 is hard. And the only emoji I could find for the concept of hard was this rock. And when we first approached this, we thought, hey, this will be easy. This is just like any other hard fork, right? We wanted to make this seamless for developers building on top of Celo. So we're not launching a new chain and then telling people they have to migrate their data themselves. We want to do this as a hard fork, right? So every deployed dApp on top of the chain won't even really notice that the chain suddenly moves from being an L1 to an L2. But to do that in a really seamless way, it turns out it ends up being a hard fork. So 2 rocks and a fork. And you might be wondering, well, why is it so hard? And I think one of the best metaphors for this is kind of this rebuilding of an airplane while it's in the air metaphor. Celo's at cruising altitude right now, and it's got a bunch of users inside its fuselage. They're happily transacting there on their phones, and we're literally rebuilding it, moving the engines from one place to another, and that is terrifying, especially if you think about just the amount of activity that's happening inside this fuselage. So you might be kind of curious, how much activity? One interesting framing is this one that Rennie here tweeted about. If Celo were an L2 today and you were looking at daily active users, Celo would be a top 2 L2 by daily active users. This is already a little out of date. Celo is processing now, or Celo is serving, I should say, around 650,000 daily active users nowadays. So it's quite a lot of users sitting in that fuselage. If you look solely at daily active users who are transacting with stablecoins, which is a real focus for Celo, we're doing a lot of mobile payments, focus on emerging markets, a lot of real-world use cases. If you do that, then as of recently, Celo is actually a top 2 chain. So we just overtook BNB chain. So this is BNB chain in number 2. And right here, Celo just overtook them, and Tron, of course, is number 1. But we are, I looked at the data today, and actually it's even closer now. So we're on track to overtake Tron soon. So pretty exciting. And you might be wondering, well, what's driving all of this? I'm not buying meme coins on Celo, so I've never heard of this. And that's because most of this activity is happening in the payment space, specifically in MiniPay. So MiniPay is a really delightful, really easy to use payment product built directly into Opera Mini. Opera Mini is a browser with 500 million installs, 100 million monthly active users. It's primarily used in Africa, throughout the continent of Africa. And they've done a really wonderful job leveraging all of the nice features that Celo offers. The ability to pay for gas with tokens, Social Connect, so you can send money to phone numbers. And they've created this really nice wallet, stablecoin only, that you can use basically like Revolut or Venmo, but it's fully built on crypto rails. And so that's driving a lot of this usage. That's also created kind of a ferocious demand for USDT, which launched recently on Celo. Token Terminal was pointing out how fast USDT supply is growing. That's taken Celo to be a top 13 chain by stablecoin market cap, which is pretty cool. We just overtook Phantom, I think, 2 weeks ago, which was a big milestone for us. And then Blast and Stellar earlier in the year. I think there's about 339 million now stablecoin, $339 million worth of stablecoin value on Celo. And when it comes to volumes, people say that's nice, but what about the actual amount of volume that's being processed? This summer has been pretty great for us. In June, we processed almost $1 billion worth of stablecoin value. So a lot of value, right? This is not something that we want to just willy-nilly, upgrade and, yeet out a new L2. We want to be really thoughtful. We want to do this really carefully. And so we've been really working incredibly hard. In fact, a bunch of the team is here. They've been working incredibly hard for the last year on doing this in a way that is very thoughtful, very buttoned up. And so Dango, of course, is the first step towards this very thoughtful release. And with the release of Dango, we have kind of 5 learnings that we can share now from kind of our journey of doing this work. So that's number 5. That's not stop. It's the only emoji I could find for that. Okay, learning number 1. By the way, one somewhat fun game is to yell out the description of the emoji when you see it. So what's that one? What? Is it?
It's like, can I say something?
Point up, I think is correct. Okay, so learning number 1 is use an existing L2 stack. So when we first started this, over a year ago, we said, hey, we've been building in crypto for a while. We have experience doing complicated, infrastructure projects. We can build our own L2 stack. Why not? And we really considered it for a while, but the more we thought about what would be ultimately good for the broader Ethereum ecosystem, the more we realized that more stack fragmentation on the L2 side wasn't ultimately going to be that great. And so that ultimately led us down the path of picking an existing stack. And we ended up picking OP and EigenDA. We picked them already about a year ago, and then we did some additional further research, really an in-depth, I would say, deep dive into all the different stacks, and then had another governance vote to reaffirm that decision earlier in the year. And we think it was a good choice, especially if you look at some of the throughput numbers right now in the L2 space. 74% of all L2 throughput now is powered by OP stack. In the superchain alone, that's 57%. This was in June, and I think that number has probably only gone up since then. So, we made this decision long before this kind of rapid rise of OP stack happened earlier this year, but certainly it's pretty comforting now that it's happened. And so that's pretty exciting. Learning number 2. Yes. Embrace Ethereum. So when we made this announcement, our goal was to settle on Ethereum, was to order our transactions using Ethereum and have a native bridge to Ethereum and to become a true L2. And, we think that for any other alt L1 that's out there, especially EVM compatible ones, which I think arguably, in this day and age, probably shouldn't exist anymore as standalone L1s, if you're looking to transition to an L2, do it right, actually settle on Ethereum. And so we think that embracing Ethereum is just really, really important. I've heard from others, we too want to become an L2, but it will only be an L2 in name only. Maybe there'll be a native bridge, but it won't actually settle on Ethereum. Maybe Ethereum will also be an L2 for our chain. I've heard all of these different descriptions of what an L2 or a rollup means to some of these alt L1s and how they want to kind of become closer to Ethereum without ultimately giving up settlement. And we think that that's a mistake. We think that you should ultimately embrace Ethereum. The whole Ethereum ecosystem has been really welcoming, really excited for us as we announced this proposal last year and then as we've embarked on this journey to make this transition. And we think others should do it too. And one interesting way, if you're an engineer, to do this is to really distill your protocol down to a patch queue against Geth. So that's kind of, all of the nice things about Celo being distilled. Right now, Celo is its own code base, and we've been working really hard to take all of what's best in Celo and create a patch queue that we now apply against both OP-Geth and the Optimism code base. And we think that that's a nice way to be able to merge upstream changes more easily and to ultimately get closer and closer to Ethereum and ultimately embrace Ethereum. Learning number 3. There's a word over there that might... That's right. Okay. And also, there is no other emoji where you have 3 kind of fingers up, so this is what I had to use. Migrate your chain data. So this is an interesting one. So Celo was launched before Ethereum became a proof-of-stake network. And even though it was EVM compatible and based on the Geth code base, we removed all of the proof-of-work headers or the proof-of-work related fields in the headers because we didn't need them. We were a proof-of-stake chain. But then later on, people were like, hey, my code doesn't work because this uncle field isn't there and I need it to be there. And so we re-added it back. We also had other like legacy transactions that we used for a while that we've now deprecated. And this now means that Celo, as it exists today, has a lot of code that handles some of these legacy headers and transactions and other kind of pieces of code in the code base. And we can port all of that into OP Stack, or we can actually migrate our chain data and repackage it in a way so that it works with a new code base that is more like Ethereum, like the OP Stack code base. And so this is what we're doing. We're migrating our chain data, and we recommend others kind of with similar, in similar positions to consider this as well. So what this looks like is you've got your L1 blocks being produced. And then at some point in time, this upgrade is going to happen, this hard fork. It's going to upgrade to the new client, which is an L2 client. And that new L2 client will create new blocks. But before that upgrade can happen, we need to migrate all of the chain data for the entire history of the chain and repackage it in a way where it's compatible with the new client without having to have any of that legacy code to support any of those legacy fields or transaction types or any other peculiarities. And the nice thing is you can actually do the majority of this migration in parallel. You don't have to stop the chain for very long, because for a lot of the old blocks, you can actually run all of this in parallel as the chain is executing, which then allows you to have, just a minimal amount of downtime when the actual upgrade happens. And so Optimism also did this with their Bedrock update, and this is another reason why we were really excited about picking the OP Stack. It really made this a lot easier for us to do on our end, and we really recommend other chains who are considering moving again from an alt L1 to an L2 to do this as well, so that they can remove a lot of that legacy code that they probably have in their code bases, and again become closer to Ethereum. And the one interesting caveat here is that you may care about those old transactions, right? Maybe you want to trace an old transaction using an archive node. And if your new L2 archive node doesn't know how to reason about those transactions, then you're not going to be able to trace those transactions. That's not ideal. And so one solution for this is to proxy those requests from the L2 archive nodes to L1 archive nodes. And this way you can actually have a really nice code base on the L2 side, and then you can have all of your legacy stuff sitting in these legacy L1 archive nodes. And since the number of requests to your archive node are not going to be, mostly they're not going to be looking at these really old transaction types, you can kind of only keep a few machines around to service these requests, and you can kind of scale the L2 archive node with demand. So it shouldn't create a lot of overhead for people running archive nodes, or running RPC nodes, I would say. Learning number 4. I haven't seen this emoji before. What is this? This is Photoshop, because there is no emoji that represents 4. But what is the learning number 4? The fourth learning is really around rethinking where your token lives, right? So if you're an L1 and you're transitioning to an L2, you have the choice to also deploy the token on Ethereum. And this is exactly what we're looking to do. And we're looking to do this for 2 reasons. One, it makes us a lot more compatible with kind of the super chain, which is really nice. But 2, it also allows us to encode some properties around the Celo token that can now live immutably on Ethereum. So for example, Celo has a $1 billion supply cap. We can actually enforce that now in Ethereum. And the way that you launch a token for a live L1 on Ethereum is you, at the time of the upgrade, you can create the token, and then you put the entire supply into the native bridge. And that way, the entire supply is in the native bridge, and folks can move their tokens from the L2 into the L1 if they want to, because it's already living in that native bridge. And so this is pretty exciting. Okay, learning number 5. I don't think it's high five.
Stop.
I don't think it's stop. I think it's palm. I think. Face palm. It's not face palm. Okay, the fifth learning is to do multiple upgrades. Right? We talked about how much value there's on the line here. We talked about the risks and the stakes. Stakes are high. You want to do this carefully. You want to do lots of upgrades. And that's why our roadmap looks a little bit like this. We've already done this Dango upgrade. So Dango is an actual fork of our developer chain, ETHWarsaw. We forked it and then we upgraded it. Next up, we're going to be upgrading the ETHWarsaw developer testnet itself without forking it. And that should happen either later this month or early next month. And then we have another testnet, and then finally mainnet that we're hoping to upgrade by the end of the year. We're doing all of these, and we've done countless more. I think Javi's in the audience, and he's probably done, I don't know how many, maybe hundreds at this point. And we're working really hard, again, to do this in as thoughtful of a manner, in a way that doesn't put any of those funds at risk, and certainly doesn't impact any of those many users that we talked about before. Okay, so if you're curious and you want to learn more, you might want to check out the Celo Dango Block Scout instance. Big kudos to the Block Scout team for launching this in a very timely manner. You can find it at celo-dango.blockscout.com. You can also experiment with the testnet native bridge, which you can find at Superbridge. So you can go to testnets.superbridge.app. And you can start building. And one of the nice things, again, about this whole way that we're doing this upgrade is anything that you do on top of Celo today will work seamlessly tomorrow after the L2 upgrade later this year. And so if you're interested in the hackathon today and this weekend, we have some bounties. Definitely check us out. Come talk to us. We have a booth. We're here to help. And let's build something exciting together.
We have time for 2 questions. Does anybody have a question for Marek? That was an amazing presentation. Who here would like to ask him a question? Let me look around the room. Any questions? Yes. Please, let's run a mic to him.
Yeah, I have a question. Why did you choose Optimism instead of Arbitrum, for example?
Yeah, really great question. So we looked at Optimism, we looked at Arbitrum, we also looked at ZK Sync and Polygon ZK EVM. Actually, all of them went through our forum and went through kind of our community governance to try to entice our community to kind of go and vote for them. And ultimately, the community was like, these are all really exciting, but we don't know how to evaluate them. So then they asked C Labs, which is where I work, to evaluate all of these different stacks. And so our team worked really diligently to look into all of these. And they're all really exciting, and they all have lots of pluses and some minuses. I think a couple of things that really resonated with us with OP-Stack was the minimum diff philosophy for Geth. Having maintained the Geth fork for a while, we felt the pain of merging upstream changes. And we really liked the design of separating kind of Geth from the rest of the L2 stack. So that was one thing that was really nice. Certainly, all of the work that they had done on their Bedrock upgrade, everything around chain data migration, everything around the archive node proxying was really interesting for us as well. I would say the license was also particularly compelling. I think you mentioned Arbitrum. Arbitrum has, I think, since changed maybe their licensing a little bit, but still not quite as liberal as OP-Stack. I think OP-Stack should get a lot of credit for having such a liberal license. I think it really is appealing to a lot of builders.
Thank you.